How's it going, guys? You guys really liked my last coyote hunting informational video, so I'm going to come out with another one. I actually got a comment down there that was asking me to do a thermal night hunting video. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to do a whole another informational video on night hunting in general and all the tips and tricks and stuff that I use to help increase my success at night. So step one is location and knowing where coyotes are. Now, night hunting isn't an only coyote thing. You can actually call on a lot of bobcats and foxes at night, so it's really a multi-species hunt and can be a lot of fun. If you live where raccoons are, or possums, you can even call on stuff like that. So it's really smart to scout before you go out night hunting. Scouting is usually best done during the daytime. We're starting to see some coyote tracks in here, so it's looking good. And then if you're gonna be looking for bobcat sign, maybe fox sign, it's best to walk up in the little rolling hills and stuff and just look for, signs of life, tracks, scat that those bobcats are in the area. And then of course you can go back to those areas at night and start calling. Alright, so now that we went over step one of finding your areas where these animals live, step two is our lights and calls. Let's look at what I got over here. But first, I need a favor from you guys. If you guys are really enjoying this content, go ahead and spam the comments down below. Throw a like, maybe even subscribe if you're new to the channel. I'm gonna go ahead and try to get my views back up. So if you guys can do that favor for me, I'd really appreciate it. But let's get right to it. This is my 223 rifle, same one that I use for day hunting coyotes. Everything that I'm mentioning in this video is in the description below if you wanna check it out, such as this tripod. You really need a tripod when it comes to night hunting. I like to stand up. Obviously you want to be able to scan as much ground as you can, and the beauty about night is it's dark, so you don't always have to be tucked away in a bush. And a tripod will really help you if you're hunting over some flat land or anything like that, to go ahead and look over the bushes to be able to see farther. And on top of that, it just makes the whole movement process of switching between lights and everything just a little bit easier with the tripod. Now, when we're hunting at night, and if you're going to use lights, like let's say thermal setups are really expensive, light setups are highly effective still, and just about everybody can afford them. So the best way for me to explain the shooting process once you have a coyote or something coming in that you intend to shoot, I'm going to go and use these two lights to kind of try to explain this. So normally, a lot of companies that sell night hunting lights sell a light that mounts to the top of your scope, like this for example. I don't really shoot with lights a lot anymore, so I don't have a setup for this rifle in particular, but it'll mount to the top and it's your shooting beam. So I'm gonna pretend that this is my scanning beam here. Now if I'm scanning and I go ahead and I see eyes and it's coming in, I'll be still scanning that animal. I'll turn my light on top of my rifle, and I go ahead and I'll lower it till I find him with that light, and then in the scope I'll turn this one off, and then now you have the light on your animal in the scope. The reason I like to do that is I always like to have a light on the animal, and I don't want a time where the light isn't on him, because a lot of times these animals can still see at night. The whole purpose of using lights at night is honestly to kind of blind the animal. You don't want them to see you, you don't want them to notice you there, and the beauty about hunting with lights is you can be more in the wide open than I would say you can with thermals, especially on those nights with a full moon where those animals can really pick you up. The goal of the light is to keep them blinded, keep them in the light, so that they can't pick you up. So it's really important. Light on the animal, light on the animal, light off, shoot. You always have light on them, if that makes sense. Now, it's hard to believe a lot of times that an animal will come running in blindly to a light, but just trust me, in the process, it works, okay? So when you blind them, they're just gonna keep continuing coming forward out of curiosity, and sometimes you'll get them really close, but that's an important thing, is to keep the light on them. So when it comes down to light hunting, there's a ton of different beliefs. A lot of people think you should turn off the light. A lot of people advise you to turn them off when you see them, and just turn it on when they're close. For me personally, I have found that leaving the light on them works a lot better than turning it off, because like I said, they'll be able to see you a lot of times, and I've had a lot more success just leaving the light on them the whole time. Now there's also a lot of people that'll have debates about colors, whether you should use red or green or white, and I'm sure there's people that are effective using red and green lights, but I just personally like using white. I've never seen a difference. I've hunted with green before, and to be honest, I have the exact same success with both white and green and red, so it doesn't really matter. I like using white, makes for better film. It also is just a little bit easier to see the animals with through your scope. So one big thing too is the call placement. Now during the daytime, I mentioned in my last informational video that sometimes I like to draw the attention away from me. Now if you're hunting with lights, it is important to keep the attention towards you, because you're looking for their eyeballs. So obviously you want them looking directly at you. If they're looking to the side, you're not going to see them. So what I like to do, I'll go ahead and just keep my call extremely close to me, whether it's literally right next to me, literally right under me, maybe just 2-3 feet in front of me, wherever I feel comfortable with that being. And that is just like I said, for the reason that I want them literally coming at me, and I want them looking directly straight at me so that I can pick up their eyes a little bit easier. So stand selection at night is actually super easy. It's not as hard as during the day. You go ahead and just go to where you think they're at. Make sure that you got the wind in a good direction and just make a stand. You can do it in the flats. You can do it in the mountains. The beauty of night is the nighttime hides you. I'm going to go ahead and take this rifle off and bring up my thermal and kind of explain what I do with thermals. Alright, so this is my thermal setup right here. I got it on an AR platform. Just makes it a little bit easier. I like using AR platforms. You can go ahead and put it on a bolt action or whatever you're going to be using with a thermal also. So this is ATN Thor 4 that I'm using. It's great for the price point. It's done exactly what I needed to do. And to be honest, I've shot a lot of stuff with it. It works great. So if you really want to ball out, you can get even more expensive units that have higher clarity, higher definition. ATN even makes more expensive units than this Thor 4 right here. And it really just depends on what your price point range is and what you're willing to spend on a thermal unit if you're going to get them. They can be pricey. Lights are just as effective, so it's not necessarily needed. But a lot of people swear by a thermal unit producing more animals when you're hunting just in the dark or just using them in general. I'm even one of those people that swear by it, because if you're hunting bobcats, a lot of times they don't always look at the lights, and this helps you really up your game as far as the success you're having on what you're calling in and what you're shooting. But these things are neat because obviously, you know, I'm sure a lot of people know what a thermal is. It picks up heat signatures at night, so you don't need a light. Sometimes we'll like to mix up the lights and the thermal, but we're going to go ahead and break down everything that we do with the thermal right now. So a good piece of advice really quick, that if you're going to use a tripod and an AR platform, is to just go ahead and downsize your magazine. So normally, you know, I used to run a 30 rounder just because it's what came with this rifle, and it hits the legs of your tripod as you move. So I downsized to a 10 round because when I put this in my rifle, it can go ahead and slide around and it doesn't bump into the legs and just makes my life easier. So there's two ways to hunt with a thermal. Now, one way some people do it and that I've done in the past is you'll take your scanning light, you scan around, the second you pick up eyes, just go ahead and shut it off. Shut it off and then look through your thermal and just track this animal. Now, when you're using a thermal, it is a lot more effective when there's no moon out. And that, you know, this is something that comes down to personal preference also. And it's because you're not blinding the animal the whole time, so they can still kind of see you. And you know, it's good to try to just stay in as dark as you can when it comes to thermal hunting. But one tip and trick is we'll go ahead and use the light trick just like normal. We'll follow them with lights as they're coming in and everything, and you just use the thermal to shoot them, because a lot of times when you get coyotes running into you, you'll have a coyote running in on a nightstand and you're looking at them with the light, and then they turn sideways and they'll try looping around you to get your wind. Now when that happens and you're in real thick bushes, you can't see their eyes, you don't know where they went with the lights. That is when this is literal gold in a situation like that. Because if you lose that animal and you can't find him anymore and he's not looking at you, the thermal will be able to pick him up clear as day, whether he's going sideways, whether he's running away, wherever the animal is going, he cannot hide from a thermal. So second way to hunt with a thermal, that's actually very effective also, is just to hunt in the complete darkness. Now this one's a little bit of a pain sometimes, because that requires you just sitting on a stand and looking through nothing but your thermal. So if you're gonna do that, I really suggest only really doing this on flat lands, because it'd be kind of hard in the mountains. Whereas like in a bobcat stand in the mountains, the lights work good because you can just scan everything quick. On the flats with a thermal, you're just scanning, and the reason why it's a little bit of a pain sometimes is the fact that you have to, you know, look through your thermal and move around all the time scanning with nothing through your thermal. Sometimes when you get smart coyotes around you, they're light shy. If they've been shot at by somebody with a light before, then they're not going to run in towards a light again. So if you get that situation, that is when this works really, really good, because it just seems more natural. They don't have stuff that they're not used to seeing around that call, and you could just go ahead and scan with your thermal and pick them up just like every other time. So for a lot of those people who are willing to spend even more money, because the thermal units are expensive, a lot of people will even have like a thermal monocular, thermal binoculars that they could just scan with separate from the rifle, and it just makes life a little bit easier if you're going to be a straight thermal hunter, because you could be sitting back on your stand, scanning with your thermal, scanning, you see them, then you go ahead and get to your thermal rifle. But as far as I go, if I'm hunting pitch black, I just go ahead and use this. It can be a little bit of a pain sometimes, so if you can afford both a thermal unit and a thermal monocular, go ahead and do it. It just make your life a little bit easier. And the last thing with a thermal, the call placement will be exactly the same as with lights. I like them to come straight at me, but with a thermal unit, you don't always have to have them coming straight at you. So if you got a really flat area, let's say a field or something, you can still put that call out a little ways if you want, and you're still going to be able to see those animals with this thermal. So one of the biggest upsides of a thermal is finding your animals. So sometimes when you shoot a coyote, you know, it's not always a picture perfect world where they're just going to drop in their tracks. Sometimes you might get a runner, and with lights, it is just about impossible to track that animal running and be able to find them 100% of the time. So with the thermal, no matter what, if they look away from you, if they don't, after you shoot that animal, if he takes off running, let's say 20-30 yards, you're going to know exactly where he fell with this thermal right off the bat. I will tell you from experience, that is just, it's a lifesaver. It saves a lot of time, it saves a lot of energy, and this just makes life a whole lot easier. So I know a lot of people are going to be wondering, why is it that I've got a light on my thermal unit? Now, to be honest, I just use that for when I'm going out to pick up the animal. I always go out and pick up whatever I shot with rifle in hand, in case, you know, once again, it's not a picture perfect world where the animal is always going to be, you know, completely done when you walk up. I don't like to just walk up just a light and just expect that animal to always be done for. Once again, when it comes to hunting at all, anything that you can do to just make your life that much easier and make you that much more effective is worth it. So with night hunting being a really broad species that you can hunt, I really recommend going with a fur-friendly round. Like this is my 223. I actually shoot 50 grains Barnes varmint grenades, and I found those to be pretty fur-friendly for me when I hand load those. So I really recommend going with a fairly fur-friendly round if you're allowed to shoot bobcats and like foxes where you're at. But if you're just straight for coyotes, it's the same thing as the last video. Any rifle will work. It really just depends on whether or not you want to save the fur. But here in Nevada, as a resident, I'm allowed to hunt bobcats, coyotes, foxes, everything at night. So I really like to go fur friendly on what I'm using. If you're going to be running lights, another good thing is you can still always bring your shotgun. Especially if you're hunting with two people, the other person's got a light, you can still always run your shotgun. And there's a lot of companies that even make the light mounts that'll go on the bottom of your shotgun, and it'll be the exact same process as with your rifle. A 12 gauge to me works absolutely perfect for putting those coyotes down really quick. As far as the shells I use, I like using double BB. That's just my personal preference. It's not that big still. It works great on the coyotes, it works great on the foxes, and it just won't blow nothing up. As far as the choke goes in your shotgun, that's really a personal preference. It just depends on the shot you are shooting and how your shotgun shoots it. I really recommend taking your shotgun out to a range or something and experimenting with different shot sizes, different companies, and different chokes. So now, because I shoot the Hornady double BB, shoots amazing out of my shotgun. I use an improved cylinder, and it just works great for me. But sometimes a lot of people like to use like turkey chokes and stuff that really gets your shot size down really tight, or your buckshot, and it just really depends on your shotgun and your setup. So I hope by watching this video through that you went ahead and learned some tips and tricks that'll make you more effective and a better hunter at night. One big piece of advice is just be careful at what you're shooting at. If you're hunting with lights, remember that there's deer that walk around at night. There's different animals other than what you're trying to hunt walking around at night, so don't shoot at anything that you don't recognize what it is beforehand. One cool tip is if you see eyes way out in the distance, a lot of times deer eyes are a lot wider, or maybe you even just see one of them and they just move different. So just do not pull the trigger unless you know what you're looking at beforehand. Remember also to stay safe, have fun. You know, it's nighttime, and if you're hunting straight in the dark, don't be scanning and, you know, point the barrel over your buddy or anything that you're hunting with. So just stay safe, be careful, have fun out there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you outdoors.